We are live. Welcome to my completely spoiler-free review of the 2023 video game Akka Arrh, if that's how you pronounce it. So this was part of the Atari 50. I'm gonna try to make sure to get it exactly right. So, Atari 50, the anniversary celebration, which is a ridiculously massive collection of video games. And yeah, this is me doing a review of one of them. Holy crap, it's going to take me forever at this rate. Yeah, because I only do a emulated game every 3 weeks, and I have, yeah, at this point, couple hundred to get through, but I don't know. I like having a lot to do, you know? So, my I'm I have already gone into like the sort of basics of what's it called, arcade games in my video on something I can't remember. Okay, I'll have it momentarily. Space Harrier 2. My video on Space Harrier 2, I start by just going over a bunch of stuff that's general to arcade games before I get into anything too specific about that game. So if you want to, if you're new to arcade games, yeah, you can watch that so that I don't have to restate all that here, because there's a bunch of stuff that goes across all of these. Right, yeah, this was a really solid game. And I would have to guess it's rated E for everybody, because there's absolutely nothing objectionable in it at all. And I think that does pretty well bring us. Yeah, one thing that's quite interesting. This was technically originally, like, they meant to make an arcade game out of this, and it's still, it has an arcade style to it. But that's why I said 2023 rather than, apparently, like, they wanted to make an arcade game of this in the early 80s, I think it was, but there was some, I already forget. I read it, and memory, really struggling these days. My ability to, yeah, retention of new information is not great anymore for me. But yeah, there was some reason they didn't end up making it, and then later someone looked at it and was like, "There's something here," and I'm glad they did, because yeah, this is very, very good. But yeah, I am judging it at least in part based on like comparing it to other like arcade and arcade style games. And let's see. I think that does pretty well get us to so yeah. This is essentially. I saw someone say that this is technically, or at least partially, a tower defense game, which, yeah, I mean, I don't think I know enough about what tower defense games looked like back then, because I will really admit, like, tower defense games, when I think of that subgenre, I mostly think of these, like, not quite real-time strategy, but not that dissimilar. Like, essentially, you place towers and then you maybe upgrade them and such. I've played some of those on my smartphone, but no, I can imagine this is what tower defense looked like back then, because essentially there is a tower and you control it and you're using it to shoot, which I will say, like, some of the time when I was playing the more recent tower defense games, I was thinking, please let me shoot. Please let me actually do one of these. I'm much more of, I've never been as much interested in just like setting things up and then watching them play out in video games. That's not really, yeah. So yeah, it was really, really cool to and I think that pretty well brings, so yeah, yeah, basically, you have a cannon that fires fast, and then you also have this thing that you cannot fire quite as often, unfortunately, because it wipes out every enemy. So there were times where I can't fire it yet again. So that was definitely, but that's part of where the challenge comes in. Right. So since I've been doing it for at least some of the others, for these emulated, I will briefly discuss. So basically, this doesn't really have, some of the others will have save states or rewind, stuff like that. This one, you can choose your starting level for the first chunk, not for all of them, and that's basically it. And I actually don't even know enough about. It's been so long since I literally have not played an actual like arcade machine for like 30 plus years. So I do not remember if this is how, if any of them. I could imagine they didn't have level select. Certainly, there was also level select in the 1989 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game. The emulated version had level select. The original, I would definitely remember if I got to select starting level. But wait, holy crap! No, I don't think it did. You know what? We're gonna move on. Yeah, the camera is entirely top down, though there is this kind of neat thing where when a level starts, you see the enemies approaching from like, a greater distance, and then, you zoom in to the screen. That you can technically start shooting at them from the overall screen, but, at some point you're going to want to do the zoom in. Let's see. And yeah, I think the controls more or less obvious, since I've just said everything that you do. Yeah, if you use your keyboard, it's the arrow keys. I can imagine this is probably one where a joystick would be good. Right now, my wrists really don't like me using a joystick, so I don't. Right, I think I also saw something about like two-player mode. Apparently, that's again not going to happen for me anytime soon. So if that's something you're interested in a review for this game, I'm afraid you'll have to look elsewhere. But yeah, I appreciate that they maintain the simplicity of the original gameplay, because that is something that I sometimes. That's part of why I got back into, why I started playing these emulated games, because like I grew up on these fairly simplistic games where it is just move and attack, and so like I love a lot of very recent games, but sometimes I would get to miss the kind of simplicity of games that I grew up on. So yeah, it really is just you use the arrows to adjust the targeting reticule. Then there's the key for firing the cannon, and the key for the other type of attack, and the zoom key, And right, I did also quite appreciate they do this thing where before an enemy is in the zoomed in view, if it's in the overall view, and you're zoomed in, there will be this like the borders will sort of what's the word, glow, I guess, for where, and sometimes it's just one, and you're like, I see you're coming from that direction, I'm ready for that direction. And then sometimes the game will have enemies from all directions, so all of them glow, and it's just this, it's a fairly small thing, but it works, you know. It just like, because you go from that, you know, little bit where you're like, I'm on top now, there's only one of the directions that they're coming from, to being like, holy crap, they're coming from everywhere. And it's one of those things, like, you gotta, you know, it might take a little doing, but you if you want to be able to complete the game, obviously you got to get to a point where all of them glowing doesn't have you like panicking, you know. And getting to that is a fun journey, you know. It's one of the reasons I love video games. Like, you get to, you start at one spot and you end up at a completely different one. It's just, yeah, it's something I've always preferred about more like active, you know, media, which, yeah, video games is obviously the most active, literally interactive. Yeah, the enemy design is great. I love that they couldn't resist. I don't know that much about the plot, but apparently the enemies are aliens. There's a thing where it says, you know, if you press this button, all aliens will be wiped off the screen. You know, that's the other type of attack. And so you know, but yeah, they couldn't resist making at least one of the types literal flying saucers. That's, yeah. I wouldn't have either, you know. But yeah, there's a ton of variety to enemy, both the visual design and the way they move, the way they behave. You know, some of them will fly around a lot and shoot. Also really appreciate some of the, I'm not sure it's true for all, but some projectiles, some alien projectiles you can actually shoot. So, yeah. And yeah, it's the kind of thing, you know, for some enemies, it makes sense to try to, like, track them. For some enemies, you'll have to get ahead of them with the targeting reticule. And yeah, you know, as you play, you know, learn how the different enemies move and behave and such. And some enemies, they don't shoot, but they certainly do put, like, I don't even know how to describe it. Detritus, maybe, which, you know, like the first time I saw one of those and realized, oh, it's not actually attacking, you know, and I saw it leaving stuff, and I was thinking, are those like mines? Maybe if I don't shoot them in time, that means that they explode and kill me or something. But because like if you've played Night Raid, you know, which I guess might also qualify as tower defense. Oh, I had some fun playing that. Holy crap! I don't think I've booted that thing up in like 20 plus years. Holy crap! That was fun. Anyway, yes. In that one, you might find yourself thinking that a certain thing might not harm you. It turns out it will. But the, let's see, then we have the, yes, where were I? Where was I? You know, thought it might be a mine or something. Then I completed that level, started the next level, still there. So it seems like, well, if it had been a mine, I guess it would have exploded when all the other aliens were dead. So it's not a mine. And then an enemy flew on the other side of the detritus, and I tried to shoot that enemy, and I had to destroy the detritus before being able to take out the other enemy. So that's yeah, really, really good. It's because it creates some variety, you know. It makes it less, you know, not everything is moving fast or coming right at you or shooting. Some of it will just leave this kind of stuff. So yeah. I think Right, and for some enemies, shoot it once and it's gone. Some certainly the detritus took more than one shot. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been that much that useful either for them to block my shots. Let's see. I think that pretty well covers. Yeah. The graphics, I really love how with a lot of these they've managed to keep the charm of the original whilst also, blowing it up for, bigger screens. Yeah, it looks like I can just imagine actually, yeah, having this on a arcade machine screen. Yeah. Let's see. Well, actually, thinking about it, maybe the screens weren't necessarily smaller than a lot of. Well, depends on how modern a monitor, right? I don't. Yeah. Anyway, but certainly they were. It was very different technology back then. Yeah, the audio does a great job of like underlining the urgency. And the explosions feel very satisfying. And the yeah the noise when something is fired, whether by you or at you. I especially like the maybe that also yeah. I especially like the sound of the projectile that wipes out every alien on screen. Maybe in part because it really got me out of a sticky situation or two. Let's see. Yeah, it is quite challenging, and it's one of those things where ultimately you now that it's not an arcade machine, you can just play if you're struggling on a level, you can play it as many times as wrists and the amount of leisure time you have allow, basically. So, yeah, obviously it's still, yeah, if you're not into these types of games, this one is not going to change your mind. And technically, if you get stuck on one level and you just really want to see what's next, like I mentioned, the level selector doesn't allow you to start at just any level, but you can skip past ones that you haven't already completed if you so desire, though do note that they do get increasingly difficult. I will also say, I don't know if this was maybe yeah, it felt to me like at least some of the levels do that thing that Max Payne 1 would do, where if you're really struggling, they'll kind of throw you a bone. There were levels where I was like surprised when I completed it. I'm not trying to like humble brag or something, because I thought, well, was I doing better than last time? I think they do a thing there for at least some of them. And yeah, it's very fun. It's addictive to play. That's one area where my not being able to play these for very long at a time might not be the worst thing, because otherwise I think I would just I would probably be playing this for just hours on hours on hours. Just yeah. I think that might just about. So the let's see. I guess I'm not sure that the no, never mind. Actually, let's move on. I don't think that would be interesting. So, I didn't run into any bugs or glitches. Obviously, I can't speak for the rest of the Atari 50. I'm not saying the entire thing, but that collection, I can't speak to the rest of it yet. But yeah, with this one, absolutely no problems. And, sometimes when you say that, there's going to be people saying, well, it's emulated. What did you expect? There's emulated. There's, yeah. There are games where even if you're using emulation, sometimes it's the emulation software that has bugs and glitches. But yeah, didn't run into any here. I think that does. So let's see. I think. Yeah. This has this sort of interesting thing where, when it comes to level design, technically, for enemies it looks like it changes, but you're always in the zoomed. When as soon as you go into the zoomed in area, which is where you're going to be spending a good chunk of the gameplay, you can't actually see the rest of the level, and that part of the level never actually changes. So I don't know, maybe it was an aesthetic choice to have it. I don't have a problem with it. I just thought it was an interesting choice to put that effort in to change around the level, but not have the player actually be able to see it for so much of the but yeah. I think that pretty well covers everything. Yeah. A ton of fun. I'm looking forward to more. Yeah, I'm thinking, because there's so freaking many, and if you want a full list of the Atari 50, etc., etc., you can look it up on Wikipedia. I forget the exact number, but it's a lot. That's a lot. Yeah. That's actually part of that. Yeah, that's why I'm doing several in a row instead of moving on to one of the other collections I have, because otherwise, after finishing all the other collections, I'll have a huge chunk of these left, and I don't particularly want, I want to. I'm not going to finish off the collections at the same time, but I don't really want to end up with one collection left and just a ton of games there, because a lot of these do have something of a theme, so I don't want to be stuck with one theme for just forever. I think that might just about cover. Yeah. Yes, I believe that is everything. So, yeah, thoroughly enjoyed my time with this. Yeah, I hope there's more tower defense games in this or one of my other emulated collections of arcade game, or arcade and arcade style games, because boy, this was a ton of fun. Yeah, I rate this 7 singular towers defending Earth, I guess, against aliens out of 10.